Расскажите про моменты, когда вы умирали внутри. Во время школьной экскурсии в детский сад меня сильно пучило. Я лежала на полу, как вдруг маленькая девочка прыгнула мне на живот, и мой зад просто разорвало к хренам. Извини, но это очень смешно. Что-то подобное случилось и со мной. Я сдерживал сильный пердеж во время прогулки с девчонкой, которая нравилась мне в средней школе. И она в шутку ударила меня по животу. Я вздул с такой силой, что мне стало очень стыдно. Прошел через половину кампуса, прежде чем случайный чувак дал мне знать о том, что из моих штанов сзади свисала туалетная бумага. На ней было говно. Просто убейте меня. Меня всегда удивляло, как это происходит. Пожалуйста, опишите с подробностями свой метод подтирания. Изменено. Теперь мои входящие буквально помойка. Беседовал с потенциальным учеником, который интересовался учебой в моей школе. У него был огромный зеленый круг вокруг глаза. Ух ты, синяк под глазом, что ты натворил? Я таким родился. Когда я понял, что потерял страсть к написанию музыки и покинул свои музыкальные группы. Они обе добились успеха после моего ухода. Это было около 10 лет назад. Все еще пытаюсь прийти в себя. Я умела вязать крючком, и мой бывший босс на работе попросил меня, чтобы я связала ему сиреневый шарф. Поначалу мне это показалось странным, но он был очень настойчив и даже прислал мне таблицу цветов, указывающую именно тот оттенок, который он хотел. Я купила пряжку и связала ему шарф. Когда я случайно наткнулась на него и упомянула о шарфе, он начал смеяться, говоря, что пошутил. Стыдно, конечно, но я рада, что тогда не взяла его с собой и не дала ему шарф. Только для того, чтобы узнать, что он был мудаком. В итоге я отдала его другой коллеге, которая наблюдала за всем происходящим, и она была очень признательна. Моя девушка решила, что ей больше нравится мой лучший друг. Порвала со мной, попыталась завязать с ним отношения, но он сразу же ее зафрендзонил. Долгое время было очень грустно, но теперь я считаю, что это забавно. Твой лучший друг красава. У меня был клиент, который держал и рассматривал хрупкую и дорогую вещь одной рукой. Я попросил ее держать двумя руками. Она повернулась, дабы взглянуть на меня. У нее была только одна рука. Я помогаю координировать транспортировку по программе Medicide. Однажды был очень грубый клиент, который кричал по телефону, что за ним никто не приехал. Я перевел звонок на удержание и стал уточнять у водителя. Тот был на месте. Я переключился обратно, но клиент все еще кричал. Я сказал: «Сэр, просто выгляните на улицу. Он прямо здесь». Это был плохой день, и я извлек из этого урок. Пожалуйста, имейте это в виду. Он ответил: «Я не могу, я слепой». Конечно же, в его карте было написано «слепой». Теперь я не теряю самообладания, говоря по телефону. На кооперативе, когда мы уже собирались уходить, я нигде не мог найти своих коллег. Поэтому решил выйти на улицу и подождать там. Оказалось, что они делали групповую фотку без меня. Мои друзья сделали это на выпускном. Смотрел лесбийское порно и случайно подключился к телевизору в гостиной, в то время как мои родители его смотрели. Я всегда боялся этого, эти кнопки не должны находиться так близко. В тот раз, когда шел после уроков, общаясь со своими друзьями и увидел мамину тачку, сел в нее и произнес привычное «спасибо, что забрала меня, мам». И понял, что на самом деле это была не машина моей мамы, а незнакомца и его семьи. Когда мне было 17 лет и я всерьез задумался о том, чтобы покончить с собой, я хотел узнать, как умерла моя мать. Она умерла, когда мне было 2 года, так что я никогда ее не знал. Прежде чем я решил покончить с собой, я хотел узнать, как она умерла. Однажды в машине, наедине с ним, я спросил, как она умерла. Он молчал почти целую минуту, и я стал переживать за его реакцию. Когда я взглянул на него, по его лицу стекали слезы. В тот момент я почувствовал себя куском дерьма за то, что хотел покончить со своей жизнью. Хуже всего было то, что когда он наконец собрался, он сказал мне, что она повесилась из-за своего ПРЛ, пограничного расстройства личности. Я чувствовал себя еще большим куском дерьма. Просто увидев, как спустя 15 лет после ее смерти он так отреагировал, когда его спросили, как она умерла, я понял, что не могу заставить его почувствовать себя так снова. Так что я жил не для себя, а для того, чтобы не дать ему пройти через это еще раз. Иногда жить для других людей — это то, что нужно, чтобы выжить в суицидальный период. Иногда просто жить для себя недостаточно. Я рад, что ты все еще здесь. Участвовал в телевизионной викторине и полностью облажался. Умер внутри, когда шоу вышло в эфир. С таким никнеймом. Такое случается. Я знал кое-кого, кто участвовал в Family Feud. Назовите место, куда дети любят ходить летом. В школу. Оу! 6 класс. Экскурсия в морской мир Орландо на весь день. Время сюрпризов сквозь мои белые шорты. Все мамочки, которые хотели помочь, имели при себе только тампоны. Мне было 11, я понятия не имела, как ими пользоваться, после чего мне провели неловкий экспресс-курс. Я была в ужасе, пока чей-то случайный отец не спас меня, дав мне свою ветровку, чтобы я завязал ее на поясе и сказал: иди развлекайся. Спасибо случайному папе, с экскурсии ты спас мой день. Какая замечательная история человеческой доброты. Не все герои носят плащи, ветровки в 2 раза полезнее. Пришлось повторить умную шутку про наручники, потому что чел залипнул в телефон. Ай, не повторяй этого, невежливый кретин не заслуживает услышать слышать твою шутку. Просто скажи, ты должен был слушать, чувак, и засмейся. Когда мне было около 13 лет, одной ночью отец отвел меня в сторону и извинился за то, что приложил так много усилий для поддержки моего брата-близнеца и так мало для поддержки меня. Я всегда предполагал, что он просто умнее или физически более одарен. Оказывается, он и моя мать активно и сознательно пренебрегали мной, чтобы поддержать достижения моего брата. Это происходило в течение всей моей учебы. Они заплатили тысячи за его спортивные поездки, и когда у меня были те же возможности, у них просто не было на меня денег. Это все еще убивает меня внутри. Я чувак, у которого есть сестра-двойняшка. Мой отец дал понять, что они ожидают от меня самостоятельных успехов, в то время как они постоянно поддерживали мою сестру. Это все еще убивает меня. В наше 16-летие она получила в подарок машину, обернутую огромным бантом, а рядом с ним лежала газонокосилка для меня. Однажды я ходил на собеседование, где один из двух человек, общающихся со мной, спросил, знаю ли я французский язык. Я сказал, что знаю французский, поэтому они решили провести собеседование полностью на французском. Я понимаю, когда кто-то говорит со мной по-французски, я могу свободно читать и писать по-французски, но я никогда не умел на нем говорить. Это было так ужасно, что один из интервьюеров встал и ушел на половине и не вернулся. Разумеется, что меня не приняли. Изменено. К концу я пропотел насквозь. Никогда этого не забуду. Как-то раз я нарисовал для своего друга картину и повесил ее на входную дверь своей квартиры в качестве сюрприза. На нее было легко наткнуться. Он спросил, что не так с местными людьми. Ты позволяешь им вешать на свою дверь сраную рекламу отдыха? Больше никогда. Кажется, я умер внутри, просто читая это. Мне так жаль. Представляться маме каждый раз, когда я навещаю ее, и объяснять ей, что я ее сын. Каждый раз. Альцгеймер — это самая хреновая вещь. Человек будто здесь, но его нет. Моя бабушка страдает этим, и я вижу, как это убивает моего отца при разговорах с ней. Она считает, что ее младшему сыну 4, а не что он взрослый мужчина с семьей. Она спрашивает о нем, любит его больше всего, но она не видит его перед собой. В понедельник утром я получил по почте кучу коробок, на которых не было обратного адреса. Когда я их открыл, то начал замечать вещи моей мамы, ее почерк на записках. Это похоже на какую-то посылку от моей мамы. В то время я учился в колледже. Когда я стал распаковывать дальше, то обнаружил документы. Я был сбит с толку, но потом нашел записку. Моя мать покончила жизнь самоубийством, но заранее все спланировала. Она прислала мне список вещей, о которых нужно позаботиться после ее смерти. Теперь я ненавижу получать посылки. Проехав уже 45 минут к месту встречи, которая находится в 1 часе езды, осознать, что основной повод для этой встречи ты забыл дома. Чувак, как мне это знакомо. Я проехал около часа в час пик, просто чтобы понять, что теперь мне придется делать все это снова. Ура, давайте потеряем еще 3 часа. По крайней мере, на обратном пути не будет часа пик. Во время своей свадьбы мама сказала не потерять этого человека, так как больше никто никогда не полюбит меня. Однажды мне, будучи в свадебном платье, сказали, чтобы я больше не набирала вес, потому что если у меня будет ребенок, то я стану навсегда толстой. Когда мне было 14, я была очень больна одним летом. Мой вес был ниже 45 килограмм. Моя мама сказала мне надеть бикини, чтобы она сфотографировала меня, потому что я никогда не буду снова такой худой. Я упала в обморок за пару часов до этого, потому что не могла больше есть. Она просто передавала свою неуверенность мне всю мою жизнь. Мой муж и я женаты почти 16 лет. Он потратил весь наш брак на то, чтобы уничтожить весь ущерб, который мне нанесла мать. Он святой. Я должен был занять место тренера футбольной команды моего сына в эти выходные, но планы изменились. Утром я сказал сыну, что не буду тренировать его команду в субботу. Он просто ответил «хорошо». Умер внутри. Может, он просто стесняется? Я однажды обосрался, когда учился во 2 классе. Мне было совсем нехорошо, но и слишком стыдно попроситься отойти в туалет. И я без всякого предупреждения со звуком наполнил свои штаны. Как мне казалось, целым галлоном поноса. В это время мы читали, сидя на полу, скрестив ноги, и так вышло, что я обосрал спину до лопаток и штаны до колен. Конечно же, я сидел между 2 девочками, которые тут же закричали и отползли, как будто я загорелся. У учителя отвисла челюсть, и я просто тихо сказал «мне нехорошо». Все смотрели на меня с таким отвращением, что я бы предпочел съесть битое стекло, чем оказаться в таком положении. Учитель отправил меня к медсестре, и я пошел, попутно капая жидкими фекалиями всю дорогу. Медсестра, очевидно, была зла на меня, что было очень неприятно для 7-летнего ребенка, который и так желал умереть. Она бросила в меня грязные шмотки с пакетом и предупредила, чтобы моя мать постирала их той же ночью, дабы я мог вернуть их утром. Она сердито сказала мне сходить в уборную, помыться, сложить одежду в пакет и связать его, чтобы забрать домой. Я сделал все возможное, чтобы помыться в раковине, используя бесполезное розовое порошковое мыло и бумажные полотенца, которые ничего не впитывают, и переоделся в вельветовые брюки и в рубашку размера XXL, используемую как халат для рисования, а затем был отправлен обратно в класс. Я все еще чувствовал запах какашек, но понятия не имел, откуда он брался. Другие дети жаловались, и учитель отсадил меня подальше до конца дня. До конца того года у меня совсем не было друзей, и я был известен в школе как пацан, который обосрался во время чтения. К счастью, в следующем году я сменил школу и оставил свою дерьмовую репутацию позади. Большие большое спасибо за просмотр. В комментариях под видео можете рассказать про моменты, когда ты умирал внутри. Плюс предлагаю посмотреть видео «Расскажите историю жизни, когда богатый и испорченный ребенок столкнулся с реальным миром». И «Я спас девушке жизнь, а она меня засудила». Отвечу на вопросы.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. president of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.